As an artist, my photographs focus on soul and the sacred, which are so often overlooked these days, even though they hold the key to us being able to thrive in our chaotic modern world. Today I'll share 3D photographs of trees from my series From Wandering to Illumination, which are mandala-like multiple exposure photographs that take us on a journey from our ordinary way of being down through the depths of wandering and suffering, then up to the heights of awakening and illumination, and ultimately coming to the radiant oneness that joins us all together. Far more is possible than most of us realize. To see the photographs in 3D, just search on a site like Amazon or Etsy for red cyan 3D glasses. I promise it's worth it. The idea for this series came after I woke up one quiet morning in 2014 and was surprised that a tree outside my window suddenly looked impossibly huge, transformed into the great tree of life, joining earth, heaven, and all of existence. I knew I needed a new kind of photography to convey the immense power of visionary experiences like this, and ended up inventing a kind of multiple exposure 3D photography that's complex enough to overwhelm our ordinary mind, transporting us into a sacred or numinous experience if we're open enough. To create these photographs, I start by standing in front of a tree and calming my mind, breathing a little deeper to raise and concentrate my energy, and entering sacred space starting from my innermost center and gradually expanding outwards to include the tree and everything around us. Focusing intensely on one tiny part of the tree, such as a single twig or a leaf, I take one photograph right side up centered on that point. Then I take another photograph upside down and from one side and the other, coming back to that same center point over and over again as a sustained meditation on returning to my center, no matter how busy my thoughts might be or what kind of crises might be happening in the world. These 4 or 8 exposures get combined together in the camera, then I work on the third dimension in the computer, deciding what will come out towards us and what will recede away from us. When looking at the images, the most powerful 3D effects come if we look for several minutes without moving, and it can look really different from close up, far away, and upside down, so feel free to pause the video as needed. It takes weeks or months to work on an image until it feels like it's come alive in the third dimension, and all the layers are woven together into a balanced, unified whole. This wholeness is important because our ordinary way of being is much less balanced and unified than we usually think. Even in the best of times, we're often wandering to some extent, with our thoughts and emotions spinning on, getting distracted and procrastinating, getting caught up in our ego, complexes, and our shadow, or being so busy chasing for more that we forget to actually live. Meanwhile, we're also wandering if we don't feel deeply connected with anything greater than ourselves, or if we think that soul and the capital S self are just symbols or abstract concepts. We're also lost if life feels meaningless, boring, or only full of suffering, or if we often get overwhelmed by heavy emotions like fear, anger, sadness, jealousy, or pain. And of course, there are even worse levels of wandering if we choose to hurt ourselves or others. Our whole world feels lost and wandering these days, as we can see from all the intense conflict, hatred, violence, and corruption, from the strongmen taking over, corporate greed running amok, and all the addiction to drugs, alcohol, and anything that can distract us from actual reality. It's been more than 130 years since Nietzsche lamented that, quote, God is dead, and so many of us have been turned off from traditional religion with nothing to replace it, wandering without anything to give us direction. Fortunately, a wide range of experiences can help light our way out of the darkness, like times when we're transfixed by beauty, love, wonder, or joy, or by aha moments of insight, inspiration, and epiphany. For example, one day when I was working at my desk, it suddenly felt like someone opened a trap door above my head, and blazing radiance showered down on me, so sacred I had no choice but to get down on my knees in reverence. In general, it's much easier to hear the quiet call of the divine when we're unusually calm, like in the stillness of deep meditation, contemplation, or analysis, or in numinous dreams. Dark nights of the soul can also split us open, like one night while I was in agonizing back pain, and I dreamed of a large black cave with walls covered in radiant, shimmering diamonds, spelling the words, "Let me out." All glimpses of the sacred are precious diamonds indeed, especially if they can jolt us out of our usual routine and inspire us to make some kind of radical change. Our ancient ancestors in Africa had to adapt to a changing climate and evolve to become Homo sapiens, the supposedly wise humans. Now, 4 million years later, we have the chance to take the next step in our evolution and live up to our name by becoming actually wise or awakened humans. As countless wisdom traditions teach us, the first step towards awakening is to learn to concentrate deeply, such as with meditation, active imagination, or centering prayer. Those of us who take these kinds of practices seriously know that they aren't just life-changing, they can also be profoundly beautiful, earth-shakingly glorious, and laugh-out-loud fun. But let's face it, most people don't get anywhere close to that far because they get turned off by words like meditation, or they think it's a lot of work, they don't know how to get past some hurdles, or they don't know just how far these practices can actually take us. I love using these photographs as part of my spiritual practice because looking deeply at art can be more powerful and less effort compared with other kinds of meditation. Because these images are so fantastically complex, they can easily hold us in a state of wonder and focus for hours. Even more surprisingly, after staring deeply at the photographs starting in 2014, I found I could take in more detail than I could before when looking at very complex things like a vast landscape, a huge tree swaying in the wind, or waves dancing across the ocean. With practice, life can become an exquisite symphony of patterns, details, and exuberance whenever we fully open our eyes, our mind, and our heart. And then even the sky is no limit. In June of 2014, I began to have an ever stronger sense that something big was coming. Kundalini energy would surge through my body like swarms of sacred bees, spontaneously moving my limbs as they passed. I learned to work with my various energy centers, including decalcifying my pineal gland using sound vibrations. And a few days later, I started having strong visions and leaps of insight. I felt an overwhelming need to join together all opposites, like yin and yang, left and right, inner and outer, and earth and heaven. And intuition led me to practice yoga for the first time in my life. The next day, there was only one more barrier to walk through, which I represent in exhibitions as a dark curtain with a sliver of light coming through. For me, the final barrier was to confront my shadow and learn to love him as yet another form of the divine. But everyone has their own journey, and we all need to step through the veil for ourselves. Now that I felt love for every single part of creation, all the gears in the great clockwork of the universe suddenly came into alignment. All opposites joined together, and all distinctions faded away. Before I share the details of my experience, please keep in mind that I was completely awake and conscious, and the experience felt more real than anything else ever has, so it wasn't imaginary or dreamlike. A supernova of energy exploded up from the base of my spine, and I found myself rushing up through a dark tunnel lined with rings of light, as 6 hidden dimensions unrolled like magnificent carpets. The tunnel became transparent, with the walls made of wisdom and love in the form of countless glowing blue letters, as vast amounts of information streamed through me. Then I emerged into a realm beyond time and space that's more real than real, and is pervaded throughout by a joyous, piercing, thunderously loving radiance, brighter than a million suns. A veil had been lifted, and I knew I was home again, myself for the very first time, completely free and finally awake after 10,000 years of slumber. Then there was no more I at all, nor an us, as even the faintest illusions of separation vanished, like clouds dissolving in brilliant sunshine, until all that remained was pure, unadulterated oneness, both unimaginably vast and compressed into the tiniest singularity. The Big Bang before, after, and during, everything everywhere, all at once. I stayed for as many eternities as I could, soaking up wordless wisdom and endless love, until my cup overflowed continuously. I finally had to come back to this world, but the world and I had changed forever. New dimensions had unfolded, and everything felt more vividly alive, like we're all being reborn every single second, and all of existence made sense in a way it'll take the rest of my life to try to explain in words. I finally knew who I really am, why I'm here, and what the power is of even a single moment of deep, intense focus. The experience has transformed me in so many ways, like suddenly having the strength to face difficult interpersonal challenges head on, to see the chaos of the world without getting overwhelmed, and to handle agonizing back pain with some amount of resilience and grace. It's also triggered a flood of creativity and inspiration that's been guiding my life ever since. Many names have been used for this kind of awakening, including Illumination, Transcendence, Satori, or Samadhi, while others might talk about connecting with soul, the higher self, Buddha self, or Christ consciousness, or maybe union with the sacred, the divine, God, the source, the Tao, or the tree of life, though all names for oneness can be easily misunderstood. I originally created the color photographs in this second half of the series to remind myself about illumination and evoke it in a way that's beyond words, because for a long time this experience felt too sacred to talk about at all. These days, I feel strongly about the need for us all to share our perspectives. Consciousness is needed so desperately that none of us can afford to hold anything back. Just to be clear, we don't all necessarily have to have any big peak experiences in order to lead good and beautiful lives. However, even the smallest glimpse of soul can have a big impact, and even the most mundane moment of everyday life can take us to a profoundly deep place. For example, when looking at a tree. I find it also helps to remember that we're more likely to have soulful experiences if we make a regular habit of being profoundly open to whatever life is offering us, both the good and the bad, both wandering and illumination. The growth pangs of our world are certainly painful, and the old forces of chaos and conflict are trying desperately to hold on to power. But as Frederick Douglass said, if there's no struggle, there is no progress. As immensely difficult as the world is these days, we don't have to settle for wandering half asleep, overwhelmed by fear, anger, sadness, and pain. We don't have to settle for feeling like we're stuck in a dark, endless winter. Instead, anyone can learn to connect with soul so directly and deeply that the tree of our being bursts fully into life, with roots strong enough to reach Earth's heart, a trunk resilient enough to bend through any storm, and branches that stretch all the way to heaven. Connecting with soul isn't about escaping from reality or indulgently chasing bliss. It's about becoming far more whole, balanced, effective, radiant, and loving than we could ever imagine. I know that talking about wandering and illumination is really different from our usual understanding of life, so what I've been saying might seem to some people like gibberish, science fiction, or imaginations gone wild. However, even if we don't have words for these states of being, We probably know what it's like to be so deeply weighed down with pain and suffering that we can't function, and what it's like to feel so free, open, joyous, and full of love that our heart is bursting. Day and night, we're always immersed in an ocean of consciousness, but most of us drift aimlessly in it, sometimes drowning in huge waves, and sometimes finding ourselves floating in blissfully beautiful, calm waters. Why aren't more people curious about learning to swim in this great ocean and choosing our path consciously instead of flailing about? What kind of invitation are we really waiting for? For thousands of years already, we've been getting incredibly beautiful invitations to connect with soul, from religions, philosophies, and wisdom traditions all over the world, but the heart of the message keeps getting lost in translation. So I focus on translating this perennial wisdom for our modern age. Because some people will still be doubtful, I should mention that everything I'm sharing is based on more than a decade of my own meticulous observations, along with a lot of groundedness and skepticism, as well as comparing with many other people's experiences from ancient times to today. I've used these same skills of careful observation and research when getting my Ph.D., learning to speak 8 languages, and working for decades in Silicon Valley. So why shouldn't we also apply these same skills to navigating the world of spirit, given how deeply it affects all parts of our lives? Anyone who believes in the scientific method should understand the need for suspending disbelief around things we don't yet understand and following the data wherever it leads. When we look at the wide range of spiritual experiences that people have, a startlingly beautiful picture emerges of the full range of our being. There's the ordinary level we're all used to, plus the lower level of suffering and dysfunction, and a higher level of wisdom, love, and illumination. And if we keep going beyond our individual soul, we find ever-increasing levels of wholeness, oneness, and connection with everyone and everything else. In fact, the whole picture looks a lot like the tree of life that started this whole series of photographs, with many levels, branches, leaves, a mighty central trunk, in radiant beauty beyond all conception. While beauty might be the lure to draw us here, the key point is just how deeply intertwined we all are in this great tree of life. We don't just share some roots under the surface with each other, and we aren't just separate pieces of one great tree. Each of us is the entire tree, just as a seed is the blueprint for the whole tree, and how in a hologram each point reflects the entire picture. So if we hurt someone or something else in the world, we're really hurting ourselves. If we choose to ignore other people's viewpoints, we miss parts of our own entire wholeness. And we miss the fact that every religion, philosophy, and wisdom tradition on the planet has been pointing to the same exact oneness so many different ways over the years. Also, most people have no idea just how many powerful tools there are for working deeply with all parts of ourselves and for understanding the great mysteries of life. For those who want to go beyond the ordinary perspective and beyond soul as an abstract concept, there are a wide range of practical techniques that can make the journey much easier. Because most people don't have time to sift through the world's wisdom traditions, in my book, From Wandering to Illumination, I condense the whole spiritual journey down to 12 key techniques that anyone can learn, including ways to tune ourselves like the complex musical instruments we are, learning to notice if we're in a contractive versus an expansive state, decalcifying the pineal gland, and other key techniques I wish I had known years earlier. The time has come for us to finally emerge from the dark age of chaos and conflict that we've been wandering in for far too long. We have all the tools we need for the journey. We just have to use them. Let's open our eyes, our minds, and our hearts. Let's open our arms to each other and step forward into the dawn of a new era. Let the age of illumination begin. Peace, love, and blessings.